Let's just get started. So I'm just going to move this out of the way and I'm going to start our background. So for our background, I'm just going to set that over there. All right, so this is a little bit of a bigger square. So we're just going to increase the size a little bit. See how that works out. So I'm going to grab my 3/4 inch. I'm just cleaning it out. You know, I'm terrible at cleaning out brushes. So for the top portion, we're going to use a little bit of Bahama blue and white. And then the bottom portion, we're going to use a mixture of the three greens, which are Hauser Dark, Hauser Medium, Hauser Light. So we'll start up here. We're just going to put a coat of white actually on the whole thing, just to get a little bit of a coat of something on here. This doesn't have to be super pretty. Hi, Carol. We're just getting it on there. This is one of those little dollar store squares. It's a wood blank, you can see. And this one's kind of a little bit wonky right here, but we're going to use it for our demo anyway. Hi, Mary Lou. Hi, Karina. Hi, Shelly. Just gonna squirt some white on there and get that on there, and we'll get drying this. All right, let's get that dry. How's everybody doing tonight? How's your weather doing? We're still getting snow. We're forecasted for some more snow. SNOW. All right, I'm going to squirt a little bit more of that white on my plate while we're drying. So this wood kind of soaks up, this basswood kind of soaks up that first coat. So now we have a nice tooth to get our paint on here. All right, that should be good enough. So here on my plate, my messy plate, we have our Bahama blue. Get that squeaked in there on the side, our Bahama blue and white. So I'm just going to kind of, dip into both of those. No rhyme or reason. And I'm kind of just going to go maybe about like that across there. Kind of on an angle a little bit. Not precise. We just want to get that on there. A little more white in here. And we're just doing that little slip slap kind of technique. And I've overworked it just a little bit. So we're just going to hello, Sylvia. Thanks for joining in. I'm just going to dry that a little bit because it's a little bit wetly. And we'll add a little more white in here. And then I'm going to just clean my brush off a little bit of that excess paint. And then I'm going to grab some of that Hauser medium, and I'm going to grab a little bit of that Hauser dark as well. And I'm just going to start kind of slip slapping that in here on this bottom half. Right up into my blue. And I don't mind that some of my green kind of blends up into my blue. That's kind of what I want to happen. And then we can grab some of the lighter green too, just as a little, let me get a good grip on this here. And we're just kind of blending that in. I'm going to put a little more dark down in here. And we're just, grabbing those three colors, and kind of mixing them in. Put a little more dark down here, and you can kind of just mess around with your 3 colors. I need some more of that light green. Hi, Miss Kelly. Hi, Dolores. Hi, Carrie. All right. So I know some of you were asking about last week's Workshop Wednesday that didn't happen. And I'm sorry that I didn't come in here and let people know. I was having a bit of a day that day. Some of you know that my car was broken into and I had a lot to deal with that day. And really, honestly, you probably wouldn't have wanted to spend any time with me at all that day because I was not really in a great mood. So that's why last week did not happen. All right, so I'm just going to clean my brush off a little bit. I'm going to grab some of those 2 blues again. And we're going to come back in here. And some of that green gets up in here in that blue as well. I'm not minding that. I'm just going to get rid of that harsh edge and kind of mesh that all together. And that green gets up in there. See, that's okay. And that's basically it. We're just kind of lightly touching the surface and kind of mixing those 2 together. So that was basically what I did for my background. And I'm just going to clean my brush out. We're going to dry this well, and then we're going to draw on a tree limb. Now, if you want the line drawing for this, let me know. I'm going to offer this one as a free one to everybody this week. So if you're interested in a line drawing, pop in the comments that you want the line drawing. Just say line drawing please, or drawing please, or what have you, just so I know what kind of interest there is for the line drawing. But I'm going to be freehanding this onto my surface. I'll make the line drawing after if you're interested, and then I'll pop it into my page here. But this is, if you popped in late, this is where we're headed. We're going to be painting this little bird's nest with robin's eggs in it. Hair on there. Just give me a second here while we get this dry. I have a lot of paint on here, so I want to make sure it's good and dry before I go any further. So what I did was, if you want to get brave and draw your own, you can too. Like, I mean, no pressure. If you want to give it a whirl, you can. So I'm going to just do my tree limb in kind of a Y. So I'm going to start here down at my left-hand corner, and we're just going to go right up to the other corner. So we're just going to bring that right up there. And you might not be able to see my lines super well while I'm drawing it, but you'll see it once I start painting it in. And then I'm going to take that other side of that limb and just bring it right on up in here from about here, and we're going to make it a little more narrow at the top. So we're just going to kind of bring that in to about there. And then we're going to bring our Y down here. Now some of this will be covered by our bird's nest, but you'll be able to see that little portion of the tree come down this way. So we're going to start sort of midway, maybe not quite, maybe 2/3 of the way down, and we'll bring that one down to about there. And then same thing, we'll bring it down to about there, and then we'll just start filling that in and getting that based. Hello, Miss Lisa. Hi, Dana. Okay, so for the tree limb, I did a mixture of a little bit of black and a little bit of burnt umber, and I'm really getting low on the old burnt umber here. I wonder if I have one close by. I might. Yes. So if we run out, we're golden. All right. So I'm just adding those 2 colors kind of side by side on my messy plate here. You can see them right up in here beside my face, those 2 colors there. So I'm just going to grab mostly burnt umber, and a little bit of black. And I'm just kind of mixing that down a little bit to see where I'm at. So it's going to be like a really dark brown. We're just going to fill this in all the way across here. And the edges don't have to be perfect because you know tree limbs are not perfect. So whatever shape you kind of end up with is just completely fine. And I'm just kind of rolling my brush here along this edge just to let it take whatever shape it really wants to. And then we'll fill this right on in. Now, if it gets too dark, you know, and you don't want it to be that dark, just bring in some of that burnt umber. You can mix it in right on your surface. This is just the initial base coat. So I'm kind of just mixing paint right on my surface as I go. Yep, there to that end. Let me have that long stretch, and then we'll come down here and do this little Y piece. Oh, you're very welcome, Lisa. I can't remember what I sent you. I had a lot of packages go out with that batch, so I'm not even sure what everybody got. But I'm glad you like it, whatever it was. All right, so there we have our basic tree on there, tree limb. We'll just give this a quick dry. So this painting kind of has to really go through an ugly stage. Oh, the mushroom gnome. Okay, good. This painting kind of has to go through an ugly stage to get to a nice stage. So bear with me as I layer up, because as you go, you're gonna start thinking, "Oh my goodness, this isn't working," but it will in the end. Trust me. Because even as I was painting it, it was kind of like, no, I'm not sure this is going to go where I want it to go. But then as I added each layer, it just kind of all came together. So that's what we're hoping will happen again on round 2 here. All right. So the next step, I'm going to use my, hi Barbara, my number 1 round. And I'm going to come around here to my white. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of that on there. And then I'm just on that top side of the tree limb. We're just going to kind of tap some of that white. You know how trees sort of get that, I don't know if it's what it is, like it gets on the bark, but we're just trying to simulate that. And I'm just kind of letting my brush sort of run out so that it gets that little mottled look. So it's not completely solid. We kind of want that lighter stuff to come down here on the tree branch. So you just keep tapping it until you run completely out of paint on your brush. So again, this area in here is going to mostly be bird's nest. So we're going to see mostly what's down here and what's on the ends. So, I mean, you don't have to go all the way across to there, because, you know, maybe we'll stop about here because most of this is going to be covered by nest anyway. Hi, Mary Jane. I don't think so. I don't have my own brand of brushes. All right, so we're just tapping this on. And you can come over as far as you like. I mean, it really doesn't matter, but like I said, most of this won't be seen anyway. And then we'll come down here to this end and do the same thing. Now, if it gets, you know, a little too white on there for you, just grab a little bit of that burnt umber, and then you can come back in and, you know, add a little bit of that darker color in there, and then come over it again with your white. A little contrast in there. Let me clean some of that brown off of there. So that's, oops, I went too far. So then you can do the same thing over here. And if you want to brighten up the top edge, you can come back in with a second coat of white and just hit it here and there with a little bit of the brighter white. And then we'll be ready to add our nest. We'll give this a quick dry, and then we're going to draw the center of our nest and our eggs in there. And like I said, if anyone that's come late, if you're interested in the line drawing, just put line drawing please in the comments, and then I'll know how many people are kind of interested in having a line drawing for this painting. All right, so let's dry this. Okay, so the shape of your nest, you know, if you decide to do this, hi Lisa, if you decide to do this on your own, you can either do like an oval or a circle. It depends. It doesn't really matter what shape you do your nest, but I'm just going to kind of just do an oval through this center part here. And this will be the center of our nest itself. So I'm just going to draw that in there like so. And then I'm going to draw my 3 eggs. So just forgive me if my eggs aren't, you know, perfect egg shape here. I'm going to try and do my best on a, you know, on a whim. All right, so let's go here and we'll bring this one over here. And then we'll put one in the back. All right, so now we're going to do all the negative space. We're going to paint all the negative space around our, where's my eraser? This egg got a little huge. We got a huge robin in the back. Let's just make that a little smaller. All right, that's a little better. Okay, so we're going to paint all the negative space around the eggs first, and then we'll fill in the eggs with a coat of paint. So in behind all of this, we are going to have our dark brown and black. So the same sort of color as we painted that tree limb, we want it dark around the outer edge of our eggs. So we're just going to fill all of that in. And it doesn't have to be perfect here on the edges. I mean, we're going to be adding many layers in here after the fact, so don't worry about completely straight edges. Once we get this center part on here, you'll be able to see kind of where we're at a little bit better. Once we get our first coat on our eggs, it kind of looks like a crazy mess right now. Excuse me for the spinning. I just want to get this side filled in. All right. And now we can add a coat of the Bahama blue on our eggs. This is a wood canvas. I don't know, wood blank. I don't know what you call these. Dollar store. What is it called? Wood panel. That's what it's called. I mean, you can do this on canvas too. It doesn't really matter what surface you put this on. I just pulled some stuff out of the stash and I got into my dark there. Well, it's okay. We'll get it on the second round, on the second pass. All right. We'll just keep going around here and fill these little eggs in. So they basically look like a canvas. They're just made of wood instead of the canvas. But I've been trying to tell myself, yeah, that's exactly where I got them, Lisa, was Dollar Tree. I've been trying to tell myself that I want to start using some of that stuff over there in that stash pile. So this is what we're doing. My egg's getting a little large there. Too much talking, no painty here. It's all right. We can fix this all up when we do our second coat. I want to get this initial one on here. Hi, Emma. How are you doing? All right. So if my eggs are a little wonky, don't worry. We'll fix those up on the next layer. Good, good. All right, so let's dry this fast, and then we're going to start kind of layering out our nest around that center circle. And I'm going to use a 5-0 script liner for my, and a bit of my #1 round as well. We're going to use the #1 round initially. Hi, Charlotte. All right, so this is somewhat dry. That's good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this color here, this dark color, and that's going to kind of be the base of our nest. So what I'm going to do is dip into those two dark colors, the black and the burnt umber. Just kind of mixing those on my brush. Just kind of twisting it in there so I can get a decent point on my brush. And I'm kind of holding my brush sideways. I don't want to be up and down. You can, I mean, I'm just holding it for comfort this way so that I can twist in my fingers when I bring my little strands out. So kind of watch here. And I'm just kind of twisting it back and forth because I kind of want them to be a little irregular is the word I was looking for. So when you do this, you won't be thinking as hard as I'm trying to think as I'm telling you how to do this. So you'll kind of just get lost in yourself and literally you'll just be, you know, pulling those in and not thinking too much about it. And the key is to not think too hard about the whole thing. I'm just going to bring those around the outer edge here. We'll bring some down like this. So this is kind of just the basic beginning step of your shaping of your nest. And we'll bring some little rogue ones out here. And you can add a little water to your paint too, because it'll help to get that flow off of there a little bit better. The paint gets too thick, it kind of has a hard time getting off of the brush. And you can add as many of these dark ones as you want. I mean, there's no rules as to how many of these you put in here. My paint's getting a little thin there, so let's just, all right. So that's kind of the first sort of layer. You can cross them over each other too. They don't have to be just around in a circle. You kind of want to cross them over each other so that that looks a little more natural when, and I think I want to bring it over here a little bit further. So let's just bring this down a little bit more. And you can kind of eyeball it too, like I am, just for the shape of your nest. I think I'm going to quit there before I get too crazy with it. All right, so we kind of have the basic shape in place with our number 1 round. So we'll give that a dry. And then we're just going to keep layering up. So the next color I'm going to use is a little bit of honey brown. And probably a little bit of burnt umber in there as well. But we can kind of mix those two colors together on our brush. And I'm going to be using that 5-0 script liner just because it has a nice long bristle on it. I don't know if you can see that, but it has a bit of a bend to it. So we're going to try that. All right, so it kind of just looks like a big old black blob right now. But now as we sort of layer up, I'm just getting a little water on that brush. I'm going to grab some of that honey brown, maybe a little bit of that burnt umber in there too. And we'll put it right beside there. And we'll just, and again, using the side of my brush, I'm just going to start to pull in some of those brown ones. And this is how we're going to kind of layer up the whole thing. And these are all sort of random. You don't want to get too uniform with them. You kind of want them to be, you know, a little random in here, wherever they land, sort of thing. And again, you can cross over each other a little bit. Now don't worry too much if you have little gaps in there. Like, I mean, you can come in here and fill it in. It's fine. But I mean, as we go, we can just kind of perfect. Not perfect. I shouldn't use that word because we don't want it to be perfect. We want it to, you know, we want to be a little loose with it. But you can kind of have a look back at it and fill in anywhere with extra little pieces of grass that you want to. I'm going to throw some up in here. And I'm just kind of twisting that brush in my hands as I kind of paint it on there. So I'm kind of just turning my brush a little bit just to get that irregular sort of shape like we did with the other color. Am I making sense, ladies? Am I making any sense at all? And then you can just put as many of those in there as you like. And then we're just going to use a little bit of a lighter color now. So throw a few more of these in here. You know, you kind of want your bird nest to be a little bit full. So it still sort of is looking like a hot mess right now. It's getting a little better, but it's, you know, it still sort of looks like a hot mess. So this is kind of the part where I said, you know, it's gonna go through an ugly phase. It's gonna, you're looking at it right now going, I don't know if you're gonna pull that together, girlfriend, but the trick is to see, you know, this is what the plan is. We're gonna pull this all together somehow. Let's have a little faith in the process here. We'll see how it goes. Just pulling out some little randoms out here off the side. That's looking a little bit uniform there, so I'm going to pull some over top of those. Add a little water to my brush. Now I'm kind of avoiding this center area. We are going to, like you can see on my little demo here, at the end, once we finish our eggs, we'll pull some of those little strands up over our eggs to give that a little bit of depth. So right now I'm just kind of avoiding that area in there at the moment. You know, we can get a little close, but we're going to fix that up. Once we get our eggs shaded and finished up, we can kind of pull some of those little strands of grass in there. All right, so let's dry that. We're just layering on layers. So I think at this point I'm going to put a second coat on my eggs, and I'm going to start shading those out a little bit. And we can finish our eggs right now, and then we can come back in and finish the rest of our nest. So let's get a little more of that Bahama blue on there. So once our eggs kind of get finished, then it all starts to, it really does start to look like something. So let's just get this happening here. So I'm just kind of putting another full coverage coat on. You think you guys want to try one of these? Have you guys painted a bird's nest before? Or will this be your first kick at the can? I'm trying to get this egg to get a little better shape on it. I'm going to have me some wonky eggs. All right. First time you've drawn a bird or painted a bird's nest? Well, this will be fun for you. All right. Why not? I think I like it when you're keen to try. So I'm just drying that coat. It is kind of fun, Perry. It is kind of fun because you can be a little bit loose with the brush when you're doing the grass. So it's like not so meticulous. You can kind of just be a little bit, just put it on there because bird nests, are just exactly that, a little bit of a nest and a little bit of mess in there. So it's all good. All right. So let's grab our angled brush. I'm going to shade my eggs with some mermaid tail on this blue. So I want to kind of shade this bottom edge in here where these eggs meet each other. We'll get this kind of first coat on here just so we know where we're going. That's where I put my first shade, and then we'll go along this bottom edge of this one. A little bit of water out of there. And your shades will kind of straighten up. My eggs weren't exactly the best shape, but it'll straighten it up a little bit. And then I'm going to shade in behind. Cool, Karina. I know you're always game to try. All right, so we're going to go along where this kind of meets this egg, and then along this bottom edge. I'm going to dry this shade, and then I'm just going to add a second coat just to spruce it up a little bit. All right, so that's kind of where the placement was with the shading. Yeah, it is sort of like painting the Highland cow hair for sure. All right, so we got a second coat of that mermaid tail on here. So we're just going to add a second coat to this in here and all the spots we just did. So we're just going to kind of spruce that up a little bit with our second coat and in here. All right, and then I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to highlight with a little bit of white on the opposite sides. Yes, good brush stroke practice for sure. All right. So let's grab some white on our angled brush. And then we're just going to, I'm going to turn this a little bit. We're just going to add a little bit of a white highlight on the opposite sides of our eggs. Now that one got a little thick, so I'm just going to bring that down a little bit, hopefully. And then on this edge, so these eggs really aren't hard to paint. We just have one more step after this. We're going to add a few little black, tiny black dots, spots on our eggs, and that's it. And then we're away to, now forgive me if my egg isn't, this egg is kind of like a little misshapen down here. Let's see if I can straighten it up a little bit. Good enough, kids, good enough. Let me just fix my edge here. where I fixed the shape of my egg. I don't know if it made it better or worse, but that's what it is. It's how it's going to be. All right, we're just going to dry that layer, and then I'm just going to use my little script liner, and I'm going to dip into my black. A little bit of that black on there. And I don't want very much paint on my brush because I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing on these eggs. I just want like a very tiny bit on the end here because I just want to barely touch my eggs. And I mean, it may not even come off that well. So I just want that light little speckle. Like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other two and see if we can get some to come off of our brush. But there's hardly anything on the end of my brush, and I'm just barely touching the surface. And when I back up, because I'm so close, they might seem like they're a little bit bigger, but when we back the camera back up again, you'll notice that they're not as noticeable. All right, so let's put some on this last egg, and then we're done with our eggs. Getting a little heavy-handed with that speckles on this one. And I mean, you can put as many of those as you want on there, but we'll just back up now, and then you can see like they're just really, really tiny, really tiny. All right, so now we can go ahead and grab the next color for our little nest here. So I did kind of mix in a little bit of marigold in here too, and I didn't do a whole lot of marigold, but I did some. So I mean, you can kind of throw a few of those in there too, just for that little yellow hue. You know, maybe some hay in there, you know, who knows. And I'm just going to randomly put a few of those in there. I mean, you can put as many as you want in. There's no rules when it comes to doing this because, I mean, it's your nest. You paint your nest however you want to paint your nest. And see, now I'm kind of getting a little bit closer in here to that center. You can kind of start incorporating some of that in there. Just a smidge. And I'm going to stop with the yellow. I mean, I can come back and add more of that if I want to. Maybe I'll add a little bit down here. But I mean, you can kind of mix and match these colors as you go. So now I'm going to go a little lighter again. So now I have some buttermilk here. And I'm going to mix just a little bit of that buttermilk and honey brown together. So we're just kind of, as we're going from dark to lighter, as we kind of go up. So now we have a kind of in between those two colors now. So we in between the honey brown and the buttermilk. So now we can start pulling some of those in, and I kind of went over my egg a little bit there. See that? That's okay. You want to start doing that. And we're just putting in these random little pieces. I brought up into that center there a little bit. Need a little more water on my brush. So you kind of already have the direction of your nest in place. So it's kind of like Judy said with the hair on the Highlands. You kind of already have the shape down. So now you just kind of have to build on that. with your directions. All right, so we're going to pull some of that out there. And I mean, you can keep going until you're happy. Yes, I'm kind of rolling that's why I'm kind of holding the brush like this, Carrie, because I'm twisting it as I put my strands down. And that's just to give them that really irregular shape. So if you kind of held it up and down like this, you would have to wiggle your hand. You see how you can do it. It's you know, however it's comfortable for you. If you want to hold it straight up and down, I just find that you get a little bit more from the side of the script liner, and just by turning it like that. And it also helps to just have that little bit of a loose feel too, so that you know, your little strands of hay or straw or whatever kind of land wherever. So I'm going to start bringing some of these up into my that dark part and over my eggs a little bit. So I'm going to bring one kind of straight over this way, and then I can bring one over across here and kind of down in there. And I think that's as close as I'm going to get. I'm going to not go too much farther, encroaching on that area in there, but I did want to bring some up over the eggs so that you have that sort of 3D look. All right, so I think we're ready to start adding some buttermilk ones, just to add some highlight on the edge. We're really getting close to done. I'm just going to add probably a little bit of buttermilk and maybe a few little white highlights, and I'm happy. You know, I'm good with this. All right, so let's grab just some buttermilk. We're going to get some water on our brush, and we'll start adding some of these little lighter highlight with the buttermilk. So you can kind of go along just random in here, because we don't want it to now start taking on a lighter color. You just want to use this as just as highlight. So we're just going to lightly add some of those. That one got a little thick as I squished. You see how they're just kind of lightly in there, and I'm kind of really just barely touching the surface with these ones. I'm not going near as thick. I just want that little bit of highlight, and you can cross over each other just to make them, adds a little more realistic look to it. Let me get some more water on my brush. My paint's pulling a little bit. Let's kind of pull one down in here. And then I have that one that's kind of going over my egg, so I kind of want to just highlight that one a little bit. Same as this one, I want to highlight this a little bit. How's that looking so far? I like it. And I'm just kind of just barely touching the surface with these ones, because I just want that little tiny bit of highlight on there. So yeah, it's looking pretty good, I think. And then you can do the same thing with some white. So this will kind of be the last step if you want to go a little bit lighter on some of those, just for a little more contrast. This will kind of be our last little step here. And I mean, you can just add a little bit of the white ones in there. And you see how I'm kind of crossing over those two, not just going with the flow. If you bring some of those in a different direction, kind of little rogue ones in a different direction. Ooh, that got real thick real fast. Let's just turn this a bit so I can do that. And I mean, you could go on for forever and just be perfecting your little nest here. It's kind of relaxing just to, you know, pull these little strands in. I think, you know, you can stop whenever you're happy. That one got a little dark, but see, sometimes you should also stop while you're ahead and quit while you're ahead. There, I think that's pretty good though. All right. So there, let's put this side by side and let's put them above each other. So this was the tiny one that I did as a demo. Let's just get these. See, this one was a bit darker. There's one thing that I do want to do. I'm just going to dry this, and I know why this is a bit darker in here. And I kind of liked that look because it gave, I added a little bit of a dark shade in around here. And I'll show you, I just kind of did a wash over that edge just to make my eggs look like they were inside there. So let me just show you what I did there. So I grabbed my angled brush, got a little bit of burnt umber, tiny smidge of black on there. And then I just kind of washed along that edge and just added that little bit of dark hue there. And I mean, if you don't want to do this step, you don't have to, but it's just a light wash just on that very edge. And all that does is just deepen that kind of hole that they're inside. If that makes sense to you, I hope I'm making sense to you. It just gives that depth in there. Just on that edge. So now you can kind of see it took on a whole different look again, just with that little bit of shade around there. All right, let me pull back just a smidgen so we can get these kind of in there a little bit more. Let me move my mess. So there you have it. So that's two different sizes, and I freehanded both. All right, so if you're interested in the line drawing for this, and we're under an hour with me talking, painting that. And let me see what sizes these were. So this top one is a 4.5 by 4.5, and this is a almost 6 by 6 on this bottom one.